Chapter 12. Zoey had been napping for an hour when she woke. She turned and looked at Tracker sleeping next to her. It was still dark and all she heard were the sound of doves cooing and nesting, and the sound of insects. An occasional owl and wolf howling filled the fresh air. After all, they were nestled in the middle of a forest, amidst scary dense overgrown grass and trees taller than city buildings. While she didn't like a forest because of the bugs, she would tolerate it because she felt safe, and then she didn't feel safe. It was something about an eerie moment when her scalp tingled, which made her fearful. He had never slept that sound before. He prided himself of saying that he could hear a squirrel climb a tree a mile away. When Zoey stepped out of the bed, his back was turned, and she took a peek at Tracker. She thought he couldn't hear a plane crash in the middle of the cabin. She prided herself in satisfying his insatiable lust. A satisfied smile broke across her face. If he keeps this up, both of them will be worn out, and of no use to each other. He won't be able to protect her, and her body will have given out before they reach Mexico. And it would be impossible to make much mileage like this with his sexual schedule. After one night of thinking about Sadia, Tracker had put her out of his mind, and chose to satisfy his cravings with Zoey. Each time Sadia came to Tracker's mind, he would close his eyes, turn Zoey over, put her on her knees, and lose himself inside of her. Zoey padded into the restroom. Leaning to turn on the water, she pushed her necklace out of her face. And then it hit her. She let out a loud moan. The necklace hadn't been a necklace after all, but it had a chip in it. Beau had given it to her on her 18th birthday, and she didn't find out until later that it was a tracking device. She ripped it from her neck and ran into the room and stood over Tracker. She knew better than to wake a man from a sound sleep. She called out softly, "Tracker! Tracker!" His eyes opened, raising his powerful muscular arms above his head. Tracker promised himself that he would wean himself off of his need for sex so often. But today wouldn't be it. That was for the next full moon. Today he would enjoy himself like an alcoholic going into rehab. "I'm being tracked," Zoey said. Tracker pulled her by the hand, and she fell on top of him, gazing into his hungry eyes. "This is a tracking device. See," she said, waving the necklace in front of him. "Beau knows where we are." "I thought you had a problem," he said with the arrogance of a werewolf who thought he could handle anything with his physical strength. "I can take care of him," he said, smiling and pushing Zoey on her back and leaning over her. "But he won't be alone. Can we just go? We don't have to stay here. I'll just leave this here, and when he gets here, he'll discover that he can't track me and go home," she said, whispering and panting from fear. Her eyes extra wide and large. "I don't run from man or beast," Tracker said to Zoey, who had already eased from under his arms. She dressed in a panic. Putting on a pair of jeans, forgetting her panties, and buttoning her blue shirt as fast as she could. She reached for his hand, pulling it, and said, "Come on. Do this for me. I don't want to see you dead or him." Reluctantly, Tracker rose from the bed with a smile. "Okay. Only because you have been good to me." He smiled, feeling refreshed. A little tired for the first time in his life, but more than pleased with this female. "Hurry," Zoey said, seeing Tracker take his time. Tracker tried to humor her, and he pulled up his jeans, put on his boots and buttoned his shirt, stuck his phone in his shirt pocket, grabbed some raw meat from the fridge and placed it in his mouth as she followed behind him, asking him to pick up the pace. "What are you going to do with that?" Zoey said, watching at Tracker. "Didn't I tell you I'm a werewolf? I'm going to eat it." He clamped down with his sharp teeth on a lean part of the raw meat, and smiled at Zoey. "I need red meat for my health and strength. The bloodier, the better." "That looks like a whole cow. That's disgusting." "It's venison. A deer." Zoey shuddered. "Oh my God, no. Not Bambi." He took a large bite out of it, with the blood running onto the wood flooring. Chewing it before swallowing, he said, his mother. And he reached for a bottle of water. "No, you didn't do that. I can't stand to see that. You just ate that to make me sick. You aren't really what you say you are, are you?" Her mouth responded with a nervous twitch. Tracker wiped his mouth and dropped the remaining piece of meat in the freezer in another room outside of the kitchen. He put his arms around her waist, and they left through the kitchen door, with Zoey looking up to him curious in disbelief. The sun rose late, and then Tracker saw and smelled what he thought were humans spread out walking deep, trooping through the woods. The moon hidden behind tall pines. A sliver of hard light shone on Tracker and Zoey, and then the men. Zoey froze and turned cold with fear when she recognized the one in front. Walking behind him stood three equally intimidating, aggressive-looking men with pale grins she didn't recognize. "Where are you going with her? Don't you know she's my wife?" Beau's tone aggressive and arrogant as usual. His voice choked and sounded rusty, as if he didn't believe his words. This was a man who had offered his wife to his friends, and here he was behaving like a scorned husband. "From what I know, she's everybody's wife," Tracker said with an incomplete grin. It became clear to Beau that Zoey had discussed their private life with this stranger. "I guess maybe she is," he said with a shrug of his shoulders. "That's why we all came to get her." He looked back at the three men at his side, offering them a light grin with a turn of his head, but his body remained facing Tracker. Beau didn't know he should be afraid of the handsome stranger. And because of his lack of fear and lack of respect for Tracker, he would make a series of mistakes. "Oh. I had a talk with a friend of yours and Hunter, whoever the fuck he is," Beau said, looking around once more to his friends. "He said some shit about he will have the last laugh." Tracker wasn't concerned about the message or having a useless conversation with Beau. He had to keep an eye on the group before him. He knew then what he had to do, and do it quickly. "I see you're not carrying a gun like before. Maybe got a little confidence with your friends around, but that won't save you or them." Tracker smiled at Zoey to calm her and said, "This should be easy." Tracker always arrogant and always sure of himself in a fair fight. It didn't matter the number. He liked when the odds were against him. "It's not enough of you to stop us," Beau said, overconfident and feeling self-important. Tracker stood and stared at them for a second, but when he saw them blink, he shifted quickly into a large white wolf. The sight of him caught them off guard, and Zoey screamed at the top of her lungs. Never had she believed Tracker when he said he was a werewolf. Things like that doesn't exist, she thought. But would she believe her eyes? Then she screamed again when Tracker leapt past Beau, leaving him for later. Beau's eyes showed shock. He stood still and didn't move. His mouth wedged wide open as he mumbled something meaningless into the air. From left to right, Tracker grabbed the throats of the men and ripped their throats with the thrust of his claws. The curl of his lips and his sharp teeth displayed before he clinched down on their jugular veins. Two bodies fell lifeless like dominoes, knocking the next one down. Silence was broken only by another round of screams coming from Zoey. But Tracker was off in the woods chasing one a few feet before he pounced on him and brought him down as if he was the evening meal. He stood with a mouth full of blood dripping. Glancing around for Beau, Tracker was distracted by Zoey's constant screaming. Beau had collected his nerves and rushed to his bike hidden behind a tree. He reached inside his pouch and retrieved a large gun, but he remembered what he had hidden in one in his motorcycle boots. The rifle was too cumbersome, so he dropped it to get back to Zoey. He would use the large caliber if he had to. But the handgun was more convenient for now. Beau pulled off 3 rounds when he saw Tracker come in the clearing from the forest. Striking Tracker in the thighs, Tracker didn't feel the bullets enter his thick muscles, and he made a death leap for Beau. Beau shot him again. Tracker fell forward. He didn't see the flash coming from the barrel, but he felt his flesh tear as the bullets exit. He didn't feel the bullets coursing through him like a boat traveling downstream, but heard the bullets when they hit a tree. He didn't feel the other bullets enter his body because he felt nothing lying on the ground bleeding profusely, but he heard when Beau was out of bullets. He stood over Tracker and reached for Zoey and grabbed her by the neck, pushing her down to her knees. "Did you think he could save you from me? Well, look again. He's nothing now but some kind of animal. There's your wolf. I heard of your kind," he said, cursing at Tracker and peering down at him. "You're a werewolf all right, but you're just like me and you can die too." Beau stared at Zoey out of breath. "I'm all you have now, so get used to it, bitch." Beau pointed the gun at Tracker's head, and the gun didn't go off. It was out of bullets. He left Zoey gazing down at Tracker, her hands over her mouth, and she whispered, "Get up. Get up, he's coming back with another gun." Beau trotted back to his bike to retrieve more bullets for his gun. Instead, he picked up the high-powered rifle and turned around, heading back to Tracker to finish him off. He reached Zoey, and now she was quiet and horrified as she held both hands to her mouth to keep from yelling. She didn't know what Beau would do to her now that Tracker was no longer around to help. Turning around, expecting to see Tracker lying in a ball of white and pink fur with blood covering him, Beau looked startled. "Where the fuck is he?" he said, pacing in the clearing, too frightened to go into the woods after Tracker. He aimed and fired into the thicket at any sway of grass. When his shells were spent, he glared at Zoey out of breath. "He's still alive," Zoey said, calm and without passion, trying not to show her excitement. "What the fuck is he?" Beau asked after hesitating to catch his breath. It was a rhetorical question. "He's a werewolf." "I know what the fuck that is, but they don't exist." Even after Beau saw him change from a man to a large white wolf, he still didn't want to believe his eyes. "There is no such thing as werewolves," he grumbled. And Beau turned and slapped Zoey. The imprint of his open hand covered half her face and remained there. "That's for making me come out after you, and that's for getting my friends killed. Now I have to report this shit to my uncle. He's not going to believe me, and he's not going to like this. Not one damn bit." There was a chill in the air, but Beau had sweat dropping like a waterfall. "I have to tell my uncle what happened to these guys. Look at them. They look like they've been in a meat grinder. What the fuck am I going to tell him happened out here?" He looked to Zoey, not for answers, but someone who understood. "Tell him the truth. Tell him it was a large wolf that attacked them first and you scared him off with your gun. Look at this woods, he'll believe you." Beau grabbed Zoey by the shoulders because her hair was too short to grip. He wished he hadn't cut her hair. He liked dragging her around, abusing her when he was angry and looking to control something. Plus, whole night, Beau felt extreme flurries of anger at Zoey, and when he got her home, he vowed she would pay.